Welcome to Hey Soul Sista, the podcast for women ready to embrace greater joy, freedom, and a soulful life. This is your space for deep conversations, meaningful stories, and inspiring guidance to nourish your body, mind, and spirit. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, follow, like, and share. I am so excited to welcome back into the Hey Soul Sista podcast studio, Rebecca Gibson, who is one of my favorite all-time guests. Beck is a psychic medium, but also a psychiatric health professional. So, Beck, I love that about you.
Yeah, bit of dichotomy.
You've got the spiritual, you've got the medical.
Yeah.
And the scientific, and a blend of the both.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I need to know all the things.
I love it. And you're in touch with all the things.
Well, I try.
The guidance.
I try.
Yeah, I love that. So I really wanted you to come and record another episode today.
Yeah.
Hey Soul Sista 2.0.
I know.
This is
it's so exciting.
very exciting 2.0. We're going deeper than ever. But I do remember last time that Beck was on Hey Soul Sista was, I reckon it might have been 2021. It was when there was
the prediction.
Yes. We did an episode around predictions during the last.
Yeah, I think I've said it a few times.
So not the American election that just happened, the last
Yes.
American election was happening. Yeah. And it was interesting because Trump had been in for 4 years. And, the election was on, and everybody was in fear and turmoil around, was Trump going to get in again?
Yeah.
Actually, I say that not everybody. There were a lot of people over in America that were very excited for him to go back in.
Yeah, he wouldn't have gotten back in if there weren't more people that were excited about it.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of them are regretting their choice now.
Yeah. But what I love was back then when we did that episode, so during the election campaign, Trump had been in 4 years and it was the election, was he going to get back in again? And you predicted back then on Hey Soul Sista that yes, Trump was going to get back in, and you also made a prediction that there was going to be civil war. And it was interesting watching that election, and Trump didn't get in. Yeah. And you stood firm.
I did. Just wait and see. I did stand firm because we've had mutual friend who she's very into the politics, and she gets so angry at me when I would say it. She goes, "It's not possible. He's got all of these criminal convictions. There's all this stuff going on. Like, they can't." I'm just wait and see. Apparently, I was right. I didn't want to be right.
I remember that. And also it was interesting because you had said there's going to be civil unrest. There's going to be civil war. And next thing we saw all of the
6th.
What happened on January 6th?
Yeah, it gets worse.
Yeah. So back then that's when civilians stormed the Capitol and rioted the Capitol.
Yeah.
In Washington. And you were like, there it is. There's a civil
well, it gets worse.
It's going to get worse?
Yeah. There's no choice for the healing to happen until they do.
Okay. So you were right, and Trump did get back in even when, but 4 years ago we're like, no, he's not, but he did. So you were absolutely right, and you were right about the civil unrest.
Yeah.
So what are you predicting now?
Well, it's always been the same prediction. I've only just been giving it in chunks. I don't want to add to fear, but I'm pretty positive. His first term, he's set himself up with legal loopholes and a bastardization of their constitution to now take over democracy, and there will be no voting as long as he's still alive and breathing. When it comes to when his term's supposed to be finished, he won't leave, and there'll be some legal loophole that will happen that they don't have to vote. He's made himself president until he dies.
And so is that what you predict will cause the civil unrest?
I think once they realise that they can't vote, and all of the changes that will continue to happen for the worst, there'll be no choice but for people to uprise in a way that they haven't been able to so far. There's no choice now.
So at the moment, People are living with a deep sense of fear and unrest because there's so much energetically and globally, there's so much going on, global events and energetic shifts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in addition to the political division that we're seeing over in the States and which is affecting everybody globally, people are fearing the future of democracy. They're fearing their human rights.
Yeah, they should be fearing their human rights with what I expect will happen in the States.
So, Beck, and
it's awful.
It is awful.
It is. It's a horrible, uncomfortable conversation. And I wish that I was wrong, but I was channeling this stuff from 2015.
So given what's going on in the States, and also we've got ongoing wars with Gaza, the Ukraine, creating collective grief and helplessness. I feel like there's so much going on. Climate change, economic unrest, the rise of AI and technology.
That's the scariest.
We're like in this crazy time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Too much.
Yeah.
There's all the stuff that's continuing to go on in Africa and basically white colonial power just taking what they want from the earth at the expense of human lives without a care in the world. Just wanting, like Trump saying that he wants to take over Canada and make it the 51st state because he wants the minerals. It's the same as Greenland. It's got nothing to do with wanting to protect other countries or wanting to join together. It's completely, we're going to come into your country and we're going to take whatever we can make money of and you'll have no say in it.
So is there a bigger picture at play in the world going on energetically, spiritually? Yeah. Is there a bigger picture? Why is this happening now?
Well, people would be talking a long time, or since the age of Aquarius. People in the 60s and 70s really started to talk about spirituality and the need for us to ascend into fifth dimensional consciousness. And that's basically understanding that we're all one. There doesn't need to be this construct that's been built that's become so toxic and is not able to sustain life. If we keep going the way that we're currently going, we're not able to sustain life. You're talking about Bill Gates saying that doctors and teachers will be completely unnecessary in 5 to 10 years. That's abhorrent to me to not have medical people or teachers because he's saying AI can do it and he predicts that AI will take out 85 to 90% of the human workforce. So what's going to happen? How are people going to live? This current structure is not able to maintain us. And the only thing that ends up coming with people who are feeling the pinch financially, who are struggling to pay their bills, struggling to feed their families, crime starts going up, violence starts going up, people start arming themselves out of fear, paranoia, and it just gets worse and worse. And so this point in time is the dismantling energetically of that system, and it has to hurt until it gets better, and it will create a lot of division.
And so you're saying that it's all part of this, the whole big transformational change globally.
Yeah. It's awful that it has to get to this point, and it will get worse until it starts to get better, but it's kind of like the horse has been let out of the gate now. There's no pulling it back or reining it back in until people start collectively using their voices more, until people start understanding that we need to look after our spiritual health as well as our mental health and our physical health. That if we come together in communities, then its problems are shared. You know, they're halved. They're not just for everybody to feel on themselves. If we had political leaders who started speaking out more, if the laws started changing around especially violence against women, because I get so enraged about the one punch coward law that was rushed through. And it's very frustrating for all of us that are working on the actual front lines of what's happening with the community at the moment.
Because you are working on the front lines.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about psychic predictions, right?
Yeah.
With your psychic ability, but actually you're on the front line.
Yeah, day to day, right in the middle of it.
In a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're all locked in together, and it's just a melting pot of, I literally am waiting for one of us to get murdered at work. That's where we're at.
Do you feel fearful going to work?
Well, I'd be stupid if I didn't say that I was fearful. It is a sense of fear, and it's very frustrating, especially for us nurses in those kinds of environments. They're now basically getting turned into de facto correctional centres with just nurses looking after all of these very aggressive, angry people who are getting drugs onto the wards, so they're drug affected as well. and weapons, the stuff coming in, the guns that are happening now in a country where we grew up not having to worry about guns. There was no talk of it other than what happened basically down in Tasmania after that. It breaks my heart that this is where we're at, because we have been so lucky to grow up here and we're so lucky to live here on these lands, and we're so blessed. And it's been easy for us to watch what happens in the States in a way that that's not going to be us. That won't be us. We're lucky. And then you can see parts of it starting to bleed into us, like it's encroaching into our culture, into our way of life, and it's scary, it's fearful. And then when I have to go to work every day and get abused, assaulted, I have to put up with people using drugs on the ward, and then I have to smile and be polite and courteous and professional, that enrages me, because I'm not treating mental health. I'm having to contain aggression.
Are the other health professionals, doctors and administration aware of that?
Yeah. So you have some that get very passionate, which is burning us out. The ones of like us that have been passionate, especially me, like this is my 30th year. I've seen such a huge change. It's actually more dangerous for me in the hospital than it was when I was working 10 years in maximum security prison. And I can see so many really good staff leaving. And instead of just leaving that workplace or leaving this particular state because they can get paid so much better in other states, they're leaving the profession altogether because it doesn't feel hopeful at the moment for us. There's a daily losing sight of why we chose to do this in the first place, because it doesn't feel like we're helping to heal people. It doesn't feel like we're helping as many people as we used to be able to move past their mental health and the things that are going on in their life. And
for people to improve their mental health, for them to heal and get better.
Yes, because there's so many other things that are going on that have to take our attention away in order to keep everybody safe, that people who really need us are missing out because there's not enough of us and there's too much having to maintain an environment where we all get to sleep easy overnight and we all, patient staff included, go home safe.
Yeah. So Beck, we've talked about your previous predictions and how they came true, and what you're kind of predicting is going to happen in the States and that impact for the world. And then also what's happening in terms of what we're seeing in the rise of violence, and also what you're witnessing on the psychiatric ward where you work. It feels helpless and hopeless for many people.
It does.
It really does.
On the day-to-day, it does. Even for me, on the day-to-day, if you were just in the moment, it does feel helpless and hopeless.
What do we do? Because I know myself, and I'm sure nearly everybody who's listening, is we need some hope.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some people that say, oh, hope is actually a false hope and that it's really about control. Hope is a way of controlling people. Give people hope, it's controlling them. But I also go, what about the good stuff?
Hope is an agent for change.
Yeah.
It's not control. Hope and faith are an agent for change. Once you start having hope and faith, this can be different. I do get to use my energy, my voice, my way of showing up, my ability to be source experiencing life as Rebecca or Mel. Like, hope is all that we have to keep us moving forward. That's how it's like when people have faith in something and then scientists come along and want to prove it because they have hope and faith that they will prove the science behind the theory in the first place. That's the agent for change. If people aren't hopeful, then they're not making different choices.
What are you hopeful about?
I'm hopeful that the system changes to what we would call a matriarchal system, which is about community, nurturing, creativity, sharing, instead of just, the 1% continuing to take at the expense of the 99% without any fear of repercussions, because it doesn't impact on them, but it's going to impact on their generations of their family. And because a lot of people have been born into wealth, like Elon, Donald, they didn't create their wealth themselves. They inherited it. And that's what people have been talking about. This white patriarchal system has just been passed down through the generations, and it's not sustainable for all of us. And so we have to keep remembering there's 99% of the population against 1%. of them and their money and
So
their
not
power.
even 80-20.
No, their money and their power isn't a match if we collectively all got together and used our love and used our voices and used our ability to come together in hope to change the system and to start becoming a more nurturing global community rather than just wanting to protect our own little space, and wars start happening in Europe.
Yeah. It's when I mention about people feeling helpless, it's because there's all these powers that be that are making decisions that are just so beyond our world and our individual realm.
Making decisions that affect all of us.
Absolutely.
With zero empathy or care for how it does impact on us, because their first thought is, how do I benefit from this?
Absolutely. So you think about the Ukrainians that we see that are fearing their country, fearing for their lives. And it's because somebody over in Russia and leaders in the Ukraine are making decisions for themselves. And it's millions of people, billions of people suffering because of that. It just doesn't seem right or fair.
It's because it's the system. The system is a white patriarchal system. And it's like, instead of it being a protecting, providing for all of us, it is, I provide myself by taking from you, and I don't care how that impacts you. And I protect what I have, even if it means I'm going to kill you to do that. That's the toxic part.
So what do we do to get some hope? We talk about hope and faith, right? To help us get through.
Individually, we need to start connecting into our souls. We need to turn off the news. It does impact people. Remember last time we talked about, I told my husband he had to come off the news, like stop watching it. So because he's got more time on his hands, instead of watching the news, he's been getting onto LinkedIn. So he thinks that's different.
Yeah.
It's still the same feed and all the Trump stuff. And he gets himself so worked up and so upset. And then he starts making memes. And then he's just getting snappier and snappier and angry. And I'm like, that's it. No more. You need to stop this. So we've just had a week away. And he was banned from getting onto LinkedIn. Trump was not to be spoken about. And he's much happier.
And you've just come on here and I'm talking about Trump.
Well, I mean, we need to talk about Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony is Trump loves everyone talking about Trump. Yeah. All the lies and all the manipulation and all the gaslighting. He's the absolute poster child for all of that. Making you think you're crazy, telling you that you're going to have something and I'm going to provide that for you, and then doing the exact opposite, and then twisting and manipulating the words to say, well, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. And then getting aggressive and threatening.
Okay. So you were mentioning before that this is a period of time that we have to go through.
Yeah.
Okay.
In order for things to change, in order for us to improve globally, Earth, us, like everything.
Because the Earth is suffering, right?
Yeah.
Climate change, you see that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've got presidents wanting to take over an entire country just to take more and more and more. And it's not sustainable, especially with AI. AI makes me fearful. That's probably the scariest thing to me is AI.
How so?
Because it affects people's intuition, and we've got generations of kids growing up that if they don't know how to connect in with themselves and to listen to themselves, like the way that we were brought up, don't be ridiculous, that's airy-fairy, that's woo-woo, stop that, get your head out of the clouds, get back to reality. And it was conditioned out of us that we shouldn't listen to our intuition, and that there was no validity in listening to that, even though it's your intuition and your fight or flight that keeps you safe. But it was conditioned out of us. And now it's our generations that have been told not to listen to our intuition and not to think that you have psychic ability, and to think that anyone that says so is a charlatan or is crazy or lock them up in mental health facilities. Now our generation have to push back to teach these younger generations that it's vital for them to listen to their own truth. It's vital for them to listen to their soul and use their intuition, because all of the information that they're going to be brainwashed with now through everything that they see online, on socials, on television is not reality. It's like words that have been constructed through an algorithm that is now a beast, and people speaking it to them that actually aren't real people, and that's not really the words coming out of their mouth. That's very concerning for children that are still trying to learn and soak up the world around them. And then if they're not listening to their intuition, there's no discernment. And then what becomes of us then?
So when we go through this time, what do you see the world looks like coming through the other side?
On the other side of this is very much the system will look different. The way that we live will look different, but it'll be much happier.
Is this in our lifetime?
Towards
the end of our lifetime?
Yeah, maybe 25, 30 years, depending what happens with technology. The rapid growth of technology is fueling this, which could be a good thing, because if this has come along faster than what we expected, then the healing part and where we get to the good stuff comes along faster than what's expected. But it's definitely a collaboration of people coming together. That there's a decrease in violence. There's no need for people to be using man-made drugs. Plant medicine won't be going anywhere, like methamphetamine and cocaine and all of these things that absolutely spark violence and psychosis in people. And the killing, murdering and stuff has increased since meth became a thing. I saw that firsthand in jail. Meth started becoming a thing when I started working there in the 90s into the 2000s. It was very different culture. Jails changed a lot. The kinds of people that were coming into jail were very different. As you see it in the hospital, meth use is on the rise, violence is on the rise. There's a correlation between the two. The new utopia type world that we'll be living in, those kinds of drugs won't exist. People won't want them because there's nothing to escape their fear from. They would rather be choosing the plant-based medicine to open up their consciousness more, open themselves up to love more. So there'll be more love. People will freely talking about love without feeling vulnerable or stupid and feeling that fear. And that's why we need to start as individuals making sure that we're detoxing anything that triggers fear in us. Detox it if you possibly can. Like, don't watch the news. Yeah. Don't read papers. Like, just change your own internal algorithm and just start focusing on the gratitude, the forgiveness, the people talking about their traumas and collectively coming together in a way to help alleviate them, heal them, rather than bonding over trauma and then getting stuck in that fearful state of creating more trauma for themselves, because then that affects everyone. So the more that we do these things for ourselves and the more we open up these conversations amongst our friend groups and our family and our colleagues and on our socials where we've got a bigger platform, the more we do that, the more people start to change their own internal algorithm. And then hopefully AI will start to change as well.
And when you talk about changing your own internal algorithm, really that's around becoming self-aware.
Yes.
That's around becoming self-aware. And I say all the time, I talk to a lot of people about doing the inner work, becoming self-aware, identifying where you are living and operating from that fearful ego space, which, is the root of jealousy, shame, competitiveness, anger, and all those negative emotions. Negative emotions, that's what leads to
turning on each other and turning on yourself.
Absolutely. And then the other side is actually connecting with your soul, with your true self.
And self-love.
Self-love.
Instead of self-love where people used to talk about self-love or they loved themselves, it was more like a narcissistic trait of self-love. But actual self-love is I love myself. I'm aware enough now that I see all my flaws, the stuff that I can fix, I will. The stuff that I can't, I'm more open about and
I'm going to work on.
I take accountability and responsibility for how I am. I'll say sorry instead of egoically thinking, oh, no, I'm not saying sorry. I'm not copying to this. And the more you do that, the easier your relationships become because you're more authentic and you're not as exhausted. Authenticity and living in that state of being self-aware and loving yourself, warts and all, is less exhausting than trying to keep up this facade of I'm amazing, I have no faults. Look
because
how
that's not self-love. No, that's ego.
It is. It's ego and it's not self-love. And it's exhausting because you can't keep it up. And people that are like that and don't have that ability to be self-aware yet and connecting with their soul are constantly having to morph themselves into something different and feed off the people around them to morph themselves into something different. And
we all know people
exhausting.
like that. We all know people like that.
And eventually they burn out. They don't have good mental health in the long run. We see a lot of people who live life like that and then they become suicidal because they don't know who they are. They've hit rock bottom, they're exhausted, they're burnt out. And the more you connect in with yourself and become self-aware, and the more work you do on being a better person authentically, the less exhausted you are, the more life starts to show you what's possible in others. And the more you start looking at stuff to be grateful for.
I listened to a really great YouTube clip, which I can share. If anybody's listening and you would like a copy of this YouTube clip, it's about Carl Jung and some of his teachings, I guess, or theories. If you're interested, DM me and I will send you the link. It's a YouTube clip. But I love it because he talks exactly about that. He talks about it in terms of having a spiritual awakening. Now, when he says that, it's not religious. This is not a religious awakening, not at all. The spiritual awakening is actually around awakening your soul and not awakening your soul and your spirit because it's there already, but it's connecting to it.
Understanding the difference between your egoic voice and your soul voice, and that you're not your ego.
Absolutely. And then understanding about the shadow side. I've been doing for the last 6 months a lot of inner work and shadow work and
it's hard work. It's not fun.
Absolutely, because it's becoming really self-aware and learning to understand yourself and actually facing the things that are not very nice to see about yourself, because everybody has done things that we're ashamed of, that we're embarrassed about, that may not have been very nice. We've all done that.
Yes,
right?
Everyone feels shame, but some people who try and repel that shame and not take it on board.
Don't take ownership of it.
That's when they hurt others.
Yeah.
Emotionally, physically, it's not wanting to feel their shame ends up becoming pain for the people around them.
I'm going to do a whole other episode around the shadow, even a few episodes maybe around the shadow work and the spiritual awakening, because I have found it such an awesome journey and I've discovered so much more around the world, myself, my connection with others, my connection with the universe, whether that's, God, the universe, guides, your angels or whatever. It does. And it actually, one of the people that I've met, because I've met some really wonderful people on this journey who've taught me different things about life and myself and the world, have given me different practices. It has absolutely changed my life. It's a breathwork meditation practice. Yeah. So every morning I've been doing a breathwork practice followed by a heart opening meditation. Yeah. Since I started doing these, it has literally changed my life. I feel amazing.
Physically or just all over?
All over. Oh. Mind, body, soul. I feel amazing. It's 25 minutes I do every day. And I was even at the gym the other day doing a class. And while I was doing the class, I actually thought, I feel amazing. I would not normally think that while I'm doing an aerobics class or something like that. But I was like, I feel amazing. I feel the best I have felt in a long time.
It's all the heart work stuff.
Yeah. So if anybody wants that, let me know.
When people say, how can you love someone if you can't love yourself? And you'd be like, I love others. I don't love myself. And it was some kind of virtue. It's an egoic virtue that I love other people. I don't love myself. You're not providing proper love to other people if you don't love yourself. And I used to think, whatever, it's such a cliche. And then when you really understand it, you're like, oh, this is what they were talking about.
I know. I absolutely get it. I'm like, I understand now. I feel amazing. And that's the gift.
You can give so much more when you're loving yourself.
Yeah.
And you're connecting into your soul. And then the spiritual awakening of starting to realize that you're a soul and that you're an energetic being in a human body and you're only here for like a split, but you're eternally forever and energy doesn't die. Once you start understanding that and then you start questioning and remembering and dreaming about, because daytime, I shouldn't say daytime being a shift worker, waking time, when you're awake, living your life, you're 3D. You're here in your physical form in 3D. When you're asleep and dreaming, you're in your astral body. You're off doing things. Like I'm so busy at nighttime, in sleep time. I'm so busy. I'm just dreaming. I'm all over the place. I'm having full-on conversations because I lucid dream. And so I understand all the things that can happen at an astral level of when you're dreaming. Other people will say, like neuroscientists will come along and say, no, that's just the particular part of your brain. But then there's that neurosurgeon, Dr. Ibn Alexander.
Oh, that's a great book, Proof of Heaven.
Yes,
Proof
who
of
now
Heaven.
says that, hey, we're missing stuff. And that's coming from someone who was dead fast, like, after this, you're worm food. Like, that's it, you're dead. Lights out, nothing's left. And that's not true.
That's a great book.
Yes, it is a good book because it's a scientist who was very adamant that
there was no such
thing as life after death.
No such thing as near-death experiences.
Nothing.
Until
and now because he had his own experience with the science saying that part of the brain that they've all been saying, no, that's the part of the brain that's working and you're not dead. You're just having a dream. That part of his brain wasn't working, was completely offline, and yet he had these huge experiences while he was in his coma. So now you've got people having spiritual awakenings in fields where they would normally poo-poo stuff like the woo-woo, poo-poo the woo-woo.
Poo-poo the woo-woo.
Poo-poo the woo-woo. Normally they'd be poo-pooing the woo-woo, and now they're having their spiritual awakenings and their experiences, and now they're wanting to find the science behind it. They're putting research in, investing their time and money into proving scientifically what had happened to them.
Yeah. So that book that we're talking about is Proof of Heaven.
He's got a couple of now.
Okay. I've only read Proof of Heaven, and that was like a life changer for me.
It's awesome.
It's so good. Proof of Heaven by Dr. Ibn Alexander.
See, there's a soul who contracted, all right, I'll live this life and then I'll have this experience and then I'll tell everybody about it. Whereas some people, if you're not understanding that you're a soul who contracts big things that are traumatic, you just think life keeps happening to me, life isn't fair. And once you start to understand, okay, this really bad, horrible, traumatic, shitty thing happened to me, once I sit with it, be self-aware of how it's affected me, be self-aware how my reaction to it is affecting my loved ones, then you can sit and think, okay, why did I call this in? Why have I asked for this? Where's the lessons and what do I have to pass on to others so that they can learn from my trauma?
Another good book that talks about that is Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. I love that book. I actually just read it again recently. I bought it 20 years ago and I still read it. I love it so much, and it talks a lot about that. So that's one thing I guess that we can do is do the work on ourselves.
Yeah, that's the first starting point. You can't help collectively if you don't work on yourself.
Yeah. Because there are two things, right? There's the individual work, the individual awareness and soul work. And I'm just going to give a shout out to Nicola Unite, who I've been working with for the last 6 months, going fortnightly down to Avalon and doing conscious collective breathwork sessions with her. She's taught me so much. She's just amazing. If anybody wants more details about that, let me know. But so there's what we can do individually and then what we can do collectively together. Yeah.
Because there is science in collective consciousness and things that we do, the words that we speak, having an energetic vibrational impact on the world around us. And that's proof in the news feeds us fear, and so we all start responding with fear and reacting to fear. If we were getting fed love all the time, and if we were getting fed stories of hope and faith and gratitude, then the collective consciousness would shift. The system would shift. Things we would, instead of being fearful, there's no toilet paper, there's not enough food, collectively you'd be getting together, well, what other solutions are there? Okay, well, that's not there anymore. Don't freak out that it's not there. Let's work together and find a different way, an alternate way, like multiple stream incomes. You want multiple streams of toilet paper or ways to have personal hygiene. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's how collective consciousness works.
Yeah.
And the more we're doing it collectively in a space of accountability, love, self-love, love for each other, acceptance of how people are individually different. We're not all the same, and we need to accept that, because that's what makes the world so juicy, is how different we all are, because we're all source energy experiencing a different way of reality. And so then when we collectively coming together, we learn from each other, that grows and expands. That's why it's important for conversations like this. That's why it's important for people who are listening to then use their aha moments and their wisdoms and their traumas and their experiences to share with the people around them. And then it brings people together, like willfully bringing people together. Then let's get together en masse and meditate. Let's get together en masse and start saying these affirmations. Let's put this vibration out into the world and push back at this fear that's taking over.
And it's interesting because there have been a number of global meditations. So people are congregating in certain spaces, countries, regions around the world at a given point in time, which is usually broadcast or shared out in social media. And at this one particular time, people will all over the world do a meditation, and then they actually will measure the love heart frequency around that. Now, I'm not an expert in that, but I've read that they do that. Yeah. And even I remember there was they did it one time, and they noticed that it was in a particular region, city in America, and they were like, that night crime reduced. Like, it was noticeable.
Yeah. So their rates of committing crime and coming back into prison reduced dramatically to the point where some people who were violent offenders didn't commit acts of violence or sexual offences again, and just went on to be good, loving, contributing members of society.
So, Beck, what's your, I guess, final overarching message for all of us?
For us to focus on love and to catch yourself in fear, which there's a lot of it, and rather than taking it on people around you, getting snappy, getting grumpy, taking it out on yourself. There's a lot of self-harm going on. A lot of people, there's a lot of eating disorders, these kinds of people needing to have some kind of control over the fear that they're feeling, or the violence, or the weapons. And if you are pushing out the fear-based stuff, that's a really good practice. But when you do catch yourself in fear, which is going to happen every day, I always tell my patients and my clients, if you catch yourself feeling like that, rather than spiraling down into the doom or gloom where you're just absolutely going to feel like crap, and why does all this keep happening to me, and this world sucks and I don't want to be here, and that doomsday mentality, you catch yourself like, right now, there's more food in my fridge right now than I need to eat right now. So I'm in abundance of food. There's more petrol in my car. I'm lucky to have a car. I can get around. There's more in their car right now than I actually need right now. I have access to electricity. I don't need all of this electricity right now, but I have access to it. There's always more. Even I keep coins in the car. If I ever freak out about money, I'm like, oh, look at all that money. I mean, it's just like 5 cents and 20 cents or whatever. But I'm like, oh, I have more money than I need right now. Look, there it is. I don't need to use that right now. And it just keeps you grateful, and it keeps you in a state of abundance and hope, and everything's going to be okay. I've been through worse, and it always gets better. And it does always get better. It's just that we need to be self-aware, and then we need to help other people learn how to be self-aware. And then that adds to everyone starting to love themselves and love each other, differences and all.
And do you know what? That's part of the reason for me relaunching Hey Soul Sista 2.0 is to actually go, for me, how can I share all this good stuff, that I've learned, that people I know have learned, that we can share with others.
Yeah, and people feel so alone when they're in fear.
Yeah.
And they're talking about an epidemic of male loneliness, and then how that, represents itself in violence. People feel alone. So when you're having conversations and you think, I've been through something like that too, or look how good she's come out of it, or she looks like she's had an amazing experience through something that happened to me too.
And then I guess in terms of what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast with all this fear and helplessness that people are experiencing because there's so much chaos and turmoil politically, with wars, with technology, climate.
Just even the economy and everything. It feels like for, I'd say, the majority of people, they have no control over their lives. That everything that is happening to them, and that there's no way to get out of it. They're spending their last cent. They're not feeding themselves. It feels like there's nothing that they can do about it. There's nothing that they can do about the war that's happening in their country. There's nothing they can do about health and things like this. The internal stuff, connecting to your soul and connecting to love, no body, no thing has control over that. If you can tap into that, no one can take it away from you. And then that's when you start to learn you get to control yourself. and you may not be able to control the immediate circumstances, but you can impact on the immediate circumstances changing for you and then changing for everybody else.
Amen, sister. Thank you so much for coming on Hey Soul Sista again.
So excited.
So many good things to talk about.
I know, juicy.
Absolutely.
Even the fear stuff.
If people want to find out more about you, Rebecca.
I have my website.
Yep.
I think it's still functioning. I'm at the hospital so much now, but I do still have clients. I am still doing readings. So it's my name, www.rebeccagibson.com.au. And then I'm on socials, Rebecca Gibson, psychic medium.
Love it. Thanks, Beck.
Thank you.